Welcome back. Welcome back to Full Circle with Wikali. A very good morning to you where you tuned in from. Let us know, be part of the conversation. 111 That is our SMS line. Send in your questions. It's just going to cost you a shilling to do that. Switch TV KE on Instagram, Switch TV Kenya on Facebook. We're getting to matters law. Yeah, we're getting to matters law, and we're looking at employer compensation. What really is that? What does it mean? Please run the bumper. We have Owor Jerry, who's a lawyer in the building, to help us have this conversation. Karibu sana, Owor.
Asante.
And maybe introduce yourself to the people. This is your camera. Let us know what it is that you do, where you work, and stuff like that before we just get into this.
My name is Owor Steve Jerry. I am a lawyer at Olwacholonya and Associates Advocates. That should be in 5th Avenue Office Suites, 6th floor. Also the Secretary General of 254 Hope. 254 Hope is just a social media movement of young professionals who desire better governance of this country.
Ah.
Yes.
So hope for the 254.
Yes.
Hope for Kenya.
Yeah.
Okay. We are banking on you guys. You'd better do it right by us.
We are.
Great.
Yes.
Today we're talking about employee compensation.
Yes.
What is that? And the benefits that come with that as well. What is it?
Employee compensation simply has the connotation that once an employer has suffered some wrong, then he or she is, not employer, but employee has suffered some wrong, he or she is entitled to be restituted, or what we call in a simple language compensation. Now, this compensation usually has three dynamics.
Okay. The
first dynamics comes as a result of when an employee has been unlawfully or unfairly terminated by the employer. The second one usually is when an employee works overtime beyond what the law stipulates that is within the parameters of the hours of work that an employee should perform. And then the third one and the last one is when an employee has suffered some injury during the scope of the performance of his or her work. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means it takes me back to when I'm signing my contract. I need to be able to see and understand the terms that have been stipulated in there. Because if I do not see that and I come to claim later that I've been working overtime, it wasn't put on the contract that I should be compensated for that, then itakaa tu nilikuwa nafanya kazi ya kusaidia.
Not really. In law, we have two types of law.
Okay.
Private law and public law. Public law will always override private law. When you are signing a contract of service, when you are an employee, then that contract of service must be in tandem with the Employment Act, which provides for the rights of an employee, and all the legislations on employment, such as Labor Institution Act and the General Remuneration Order of 1982.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we talk about the very first one, type of compensation that you talked about, the one that in terms of compensation, well, your time is up with, or your contract is over, ama you've been fired.
Yeah, unlawful or unfair termination.
Unfair termination.
Yes.
So when that happens, how do you go about it? Because we've seen that happen a lot, and especially last year, there was a lot of conversations around, I was just told I'm redundant.
Yeah.
Nobody, what are the parameters to show that I am redundant? Some were like, tunafunga biashara. Where do you go? How do you start the journey of now forcing or putting your employer in a position to compensate you for that?
The kind of compensation or how to go about it will normally depend on the kind of wrong that has been occasioned to you as an employee.
For example?
For instance, I will use the one that you have mentioned about redundancy.
Yes.
If they are under the Employment Act, there is a stipulated procedure of how an employer should be declaring employees redundant. Yes, the first thing is that the employer has to do is to notify a trade union if the employee is a member of a trade union.
Okay.
Or if he's not, then a representative of the employee of his or her own choice. And then now we have to, the employer has now to show the parameters of the redundancy that he wants to rely on. Yes. And that simply means you cannot come and say as an employer that you want to declare part of your employees redundant and then you're hiring some into your workforce.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that when that happens, then when I am declared redundant and now I can see you hiring other people, how then do I go about it? Because I still need help, right?
Correct. The first thing that you do is that you write to the labor officer. The office of the labor officer is an office established under the Employment Act. So the labor officer will take up that matter, or alternatively, you can write to your employer directly and demand for compensation of otherwise what would have been entitled to you as your benefits during your contract of service.
Okay.
Yes, now if the employer fails to do that, you can then now write what we call a demand letter for the employer to pay you what you ought to have been paid. If the employer still doesn't pay that, then now you can move to court, and the court we are speaking about is the Employment and Labor Relations Court.
Okay.
Yes. In some instances, the lower courts.
Oh, the lower courts.
Yes.
So now we'll have to go through this whole process before we get to a point where we are going to court.
Correct.
That is in if the employer is not willing to give me what is rightfully mine.
Yes.
According to the contract and according to how I was terminated.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the other one? We talked about,
unlawful termination or unfair termination of the contract of service of an employee. The second one that we would mention is when an employee gets injured in the scope of the performance of his or her duty. Yes.
Let's talk about that, because we've seen some people who've gotten injured, and I think we got loads of SMSs earlier this year when we were talking about something close to this. And there's one that I remember clearly where this gentleman got COVID in the line of work, but instead of being compensated ama kwa mbwende nyumbani, alifutwa kabisa. Hata alipopona, he wasn't allowed back to come to the office.
And that is a gross violation of...
Gross?
Yes. It's a gross violation of the rights of an employee. The first thing that usually happens when an employee gets injured in the scope of the performance of his or her work is that you notify the employer of the particulars of that injury. Or if the injury caused death, then a dependent of the employee should do so.
Okay.
Now, there is a rider on that because you only have up to 30 days within which to notify your employer.
Okay.
Yes. So if the 30 days lapse, the employer will not be obliged to compensate you for the injury that you suffered.
So, nimeanguka na nduthi niki deliver for a certain company.
Yes.
They have employed me, I'm delivering for them. I am unconscious, I probably have broken limbs, things, and I'm in hospital for a longer time than 30 days. When 30 days are over and I'm not able to go back, or probably whatever happened, my relatives were not able to go back and ask for compensation, then after 30 days, wamenioga mikono.
That is why the law presupposes that it is the employee who is supposed to be notifying the employer or a dependent of the employee.
Notifying the employer. So
yes.
In a case where they are not willing to compensate, which is not a new case in this country, what happens then as an employee? What do I do then?
You move to court.
Okay.
Yes.
Still the lower courts.
Correct. No. Let me just put this out clear.
Okay.
For you to move to the lower courts, then your salary, monthly salary or remuneration must be less than 80,000 per month. If it is above 80,000 per month, then you go to the Employment and Labor Relations Court.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Thank
Yeah.
you for clearing that out. So if it's 80,000 and below, I go to the lower courts.
Correct.
And then the employer now will be forced to compensate me in
Yes.
that way. And is there probably a formula of knowing how much money? I mean, does it depend with the injury? Is it supposed to take care of the bill? Like, what really happens in that case?
There is a stipulated amount of money that you are supposed to be compensated, and that would depend with the kind and nature of the injuries that you suffer.
Okay.
Yes, all that is under the Labor Institutions Act. Yes.
So there will be a guideline to that,
Yes.
or for that to happen.
Yeah, for the kind of, you can't find that someone has a mutilated arm, for example, someone has lost an eye. There are different kind of compensations
I'm
for that.
Probably I use my hands to work and now I don't have them. What happens then? Because I probably will never be able to work again.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other one is where we work overtime.
Correct.
What is overtime really? Does it is it different for different organizations and different careers, different jobs?
No. It is similar.
Tafadhali
It
tueleze.
cuts across the entire divide.
Okay.
And under the law, for those workers, adult workers who work during the day, they should not be working for more than 52 hours a week.
52 hours a week.
Correct.
Okay.
Spread across a period of 6 days within those 7 days in a week.
So ni 6 days, 52 hours.
Yes.
We're starting to count.
Now, if you're a night worker, then you should not work for more than 60 hours a week.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
Do we know as Kenyans how much wakiwa left, right, center war?
That's why they are lawyers to
help you and
Yes.
guide you in this. So if I have realized I've been working overtime and I'm not getting some money from my boss for that, and I request for the same, and they tell me they didn't force me, that I was doing voluntary work. So again, do we go back to the private and public law?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm a good student.
A very good student.
So we go to the public law. The public law will override the private law.
Yes.
And then they will be forced to compensate. Or do we calculate the hours?
Yeah, there is a formula used for calculating. And this formula is quite challenging, especially if you do not have your stuff right. For instance, if you work, that was just one of the parts of overtime.
Oh, okay.
There is also when you work during weekends and public holidays. Now, if you work during weekends and public holidays,
Yes.
you are supposed to be getting twice your salary calculated on a hourly basis.
Ate? Okay. If
Yes.
you work on the weekend and your contract is not for the weekend, you know, there are people who kazi yao iko weekend.
Yeah.
If you're working through the week, the 6 days, the 52 hours,
Yeah.
but you're still called in on a public holiday, you need to be paid twice.
You need to be paid twice as much as the salary that you could have gotten on a hourly basis based on your remuneration.
That's good money. Considering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you work overtime in the first instance that we were saying, then your compensation is 1.5 times your hourly salary.
For the week.
Yes.
The normal times that
Yeah.
I work. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to note. Okay. Kuna mtu yauliza hapa maswali. Hello guys, let's say you are employed without signing an employee contract by a private company and you're earning 30,000 non-taxable.
Correct.
And you get a contractual internship with the Ministry of Education under a diploma program paying taxable 25K for an 8 months non-renewable term. There's a lot here. Mashika.
Yeah.
Without knowing if there is a job after the internship. Do you go to the internship or continue with the job? So there's the 30K non-taxable.
Yeah.
No contracts. But then now, amepata ingine ya ministry iko na tax na unalipwa 25k na ni ya 8 months. I think anataka tu guide ajacha jina lake jameni.
The taxable income in this country is 24,000 Kenya shillings. So if you're earning anything above 24,000 Kenya shillings, you are eligible to pay tax.
Please say that again.
The taxable income in this country is 24,000 Kenya shillings. So if you're earning anything 24,000 and above, you are eligible to pay tax, the payee.
Yes.
Now, I get his worry or concern because he's operating without a contract of service.
Yes.
But the law cures that. There are certain criteria that the courts of law have developed to determine whether one is an employee or not. Because for you to benefit from these things that we are saying, then you must be an employee. One of the factors that courts look at is what is the nature of control of your work by your employer. If there is so much control by the employer, then you are deemed to be an employee.
Yes.
Then if the tools and implements which you are using to perform your work are provided by the employer, you are deemed to be an employee.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So coming back to his question on which one to go to, it will now then depend upon him. What does he or she want?
Because employer anaweza kwambia kazi imeisha. Huko kwingine 8 months, it's a tough world. Our time is up, time is up. Contact details, how people can get directly in touch with you, where your offices are located.
I started by saying that our offices are located at 5th Avenue Office Suites, 6th floor, suite number 15.
Okay.
My contact is 0720 102 393.
Say that again.
0720 102 393.
Thank you so much for coming over. Now you know if you're working overtime or not and how much money you'll be earning if you're working on a public holiday. We're here for you. We're your ultimate plugs. We're going to take a very short commercial break. We will be right back. This is Full Circle with Mwikali.